What am I saying again?
This is MPW,
MPW.
the podcast
with your host,
Xylo Aria. Cool.
a podcast about music production
for the everyday musician,
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Lara Chapman is an award-winning singer-songwriter turned viral vocal coach and the founder of VoxTape Studios. Born in Switzerland, her aspirations quickly took her to New York City, where after many releases, hundreds of shows, and navigating the music industry, she discovered her true passion of helping others transform from singers into artists. She has since helped millions of passionate singers from around the world. Hello, Lara, and welcome to this podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. So how has your day been so far?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Xylo. I love being here, so thanks for the opportunity to chat with you here today. My day has been great. It started off with going to the gym, and then you always know, okay, I feel like I've accomplished something already. It's just the morning. This is going to be a good day, so it's a good day.
Yes. I very much agree with you on when you get in the exercise. I feel like the day just kind of starts off on the right foot, especially when I know I should be exercising and I don't. Then I'm like, oh no, you already start with that bit of guilt.
Yes, I can relate.
Yeah. No, but that's good. Good to hear. So we are, of course, going to chat to you about vocal performance and building confidence in this area as well. But I'd love to hear, before we get into that, a bit more about your career. So how did things start for you? And you're doing so many different things at the moment. And how did you get to where you are today with everything in music?
Yeah, absolutely. So my entire life, my whole dream and my whole goal was to live in Hollywood and be a famous singer, right? Like ever since I was a little kid, I was like, I want to be just like Christina Aguilera, right? Back then it was Christina Aguilera. But, so everything I did was basically working towards that goal. I started, playing instruments at a very early age. I started taking singing lessons as early as I could. I grew up in Switzerland. And so there, the music school that I went to didn't allow kids to take voice lessons before they were 13. So I was like, but I want to take lessons now. I know. So I had to wait. But, I loved it. I loved everything about it. I majored in vocal performance in high school. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to be an artist. This is going to be great. I went to college, first for musical theater and then for contemporary vocal songwriting and music business. So I was doing everything that I thought you needed to do to be an artist. And so when I was at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, in my third semester there, I got the opportunity to audition for a manager down in Nashville, Tennessee. So I flew down, I signed the contract, I wrote and recorded and released original music, a debut album. I played tons of paid shows, say that 3 times fast. And then I won the John Lennon Songwriting Contest. I mean, I pretty much did it all. And so I was on the route to, doing what I really wanted to do, being an artist and making a living with music and writing and performing and all that stuff. And the more I was doing it, the more I realized that I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. And I started teaching singing lessons on the side. And, my mom is a kindergarten teacher. And I always told her, I could never teach. I could never do what you do. This is exhausting. Why do you torture yourself? And the more I was teaching, the more I fell in love with it. I loved helping others pursue their goals with singing and with music. So that passion to help others outgrew my passion for being an artist myself. And then COVID hit. And so I was still doing the whole artist stuff, and I put together a whole tour. It was supposed to start in April, and then COVID hit in March, and I had to cancel the whole thing. And I was like, all right, this is it. This is a sign. I'm done. We're just going to focus on vocal coaching and artist coaching all the way. And that's when everything started taking off. Just a couple months later, the whole vocal coaching business just exploded. And haven't looked back since. I love, 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 love where I'm at right now. So much happier than trying to pursue a career myself, helping others do that for them. But yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And there are so many things there that I can relate to as well. And I never actually made this connection, but my mum is also a teacher. And also in primary school. And I remember thinking, my gosh, the patience you have, I would never have for teaching. And it's funny, it's kind of, I've ended up in this space as well, but the satisfaction that you get from seeing your students learn something and get really excited about this new skill is just something that is so hard to get from something else. And it's so, so rewarding.
Yes, it really is.
And also around everything that you do, you've kind of built a fairly significant social media following as well. So can you talk me through that? Like, did that come about through the vocal coaching or the artistry or like a mix of both?
Yeah, so it was all vocal coaching. The whole VoxTape Studios social media that you see on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. You know, we have over 1 million subscribers and followers across all platforms at this point, which is amazing and so grateful for that. And I put a lot of work into that too.
Of course.
But it was all from vocal coaching. I used to have a whole profile for my artistry stuff, but when I started posting vocal coaching stuff, I kept it completely separately because my manager at the time was not very happy that I was doing vocal coaching. He's like, well, if we approach labels and they see that you do vocal coaching, they're not going to take you seriously, which at this point, I don't agree with that, but that was his opinion and that's what he wanted me to do. And I was like, okay, I understand that. I still got to make money. So I'm going to keep those two things separate to the best of my abilities. And so whenever I was doing interviews as an artist, I never talked about my vocal coaching stuff or my, performance services for like weddings and corporate events, because that's just like, you're not a real quote unquote artist if you do that in some people's minds, right? Like you're only a quote unquote real artist if you're playing venues and like real shows. Yeah, so I try to keep those things separate. Hindsight, I wouldn't do that anymore. But to answer your question, social media following was all from vocal coaching and artist coaching. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. No, that's great to hear how you got to where you are as well. And yes, the social media, it doesn't happen out of nowhere. So I'm sure you did put a lot of effort into the back of that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And can you tell us a random fact about yourself that maybe not that many people in the industry know about you?
So there's two things, one musical thing and one just like total random thing. One of the musical things is, like I'm the contemporary coach out there and I don't touch classical at all, never had any classical training, but I was actually trained in musical theater first. And not many people know that because I'm the pop girl, right? Like pop is my thing and that's what I love, 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 love to do. But I have a whole degree, actually it's not a degree, it's a diploma because it was just a 2-year program for musical theater and acting for film and TV, believe it or not.
Okay.
I went down the whole actress route too in musical theater school because it was a film school that had a musical theater program. And yeah, so I did film work and musical theater work, which I'm like, why did I do that? I learned a lot, but like, not my thing. So that's one musical random fact. The other one that has nothing to do with music is I have cracked my skull 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What?
So yes, whenever I fall on my head. I've had like 10 concussions and I've broken my skull 3 times in my life. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's definitely a random fact and that's pretty intense.
Yes.
But it sounds like you've always recovered back on your feet and all good. So that's good.
That's the question, did I really recover? Am I normal? That's really the question, but to each their own. Like you can interpret that the way you'd like, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I love that. Nice. Okay. So now going to a bit of time travel, is there an event in your life that you feel like you would change, or if not change, that you feel like you've maybe learned the most from?
Yeah, so I believe everything happens for a reason. So, like, I wouldn't necessarily go back and change something because you always learn from those experiences, right? Even if they weren't necessarily positive experiences. But so, like I said, the musical theater school, right? Like, in my mind, I thought, oh, why not act, sing, and dance at the same time? That sounds great. But I didn't do enough research into musical theater. So I didn't realize how different musical theater music was from my pop music that I love so much. And so I went to musical theater school and it was crazy. I was like, I hate all of these songs. Like, this is terrible. I don't like the way they are making me sing these songs because singing in a musical theater way versus a pop way or a contemporary way is very different. And I'm like, they're making me be something I am not, and I don't like it. And the teachers there realized it pretty quickly that I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but they still helped me a lot. Like, I learned all of my storytelling work there. Before that, I never really cared about storytelling. I just wanted to belt my face off and sound good, because that's what you do when you have no idea what you're doing in your life when you're a kid. But that's why I learned all of my storytelling skills. So I learned a lot, but it just wasn't the right thing for me. So what I learned is do your research before you commit to something that crazy, right? Like college, like something that is going to cost you a lot of money and is also, you're going to spend a lot of time there, right? So do your research.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not really something that I thought about a lot before I chose my degree, and it had nothing to do with music. But yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if it's like the maturity level at that time or what, but you don't really realize that there aren't going to be many opportunities where you get to spend 3 years or however long just studying one specific or, maybe two topics. So to really think about this. So I think that's a great point for someone to think about.
Honestly, if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't go to college at all anymore. Not for music. Because all the skills that you need to be an artist out there, you can learn from people like you and me, honestly, right? Like, you teach production, I teach artistry around vocals and vocal techniques. There's other people out there that will help you with branding and management and how to make money with your music. And you don't need to go to college for those things because those are like your prime years. And they will help you work on your skills, but they're not going to teach you anything about social media and how to build an audience and a fan base and how to actually make money with your music. Sure, they have classes on music business, but not like, how do you navigate the music business as an artist, right? Like, how do you do social media and how do you set yourself apart from everybody else? And so, you spend, in the US at least, let's say on a 4-year program, you spend $100,000 and you spend 4 years.
Goodness.
So $100,000 over 4 years, you know what I can do with $100,000 in the music industry? Like, use that time and that money to do it rather than to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Learning by doing, right? And take that money and get the help from people who are doing it or used to do it, right? And not from a college. Because sure, you get the fancy name, you get the network, and it's a great experience. But is it needed? No, it's not.
Yeah. Yes. No, that is something that does come up occasionally on the podcast as well. And it's just good to note that it's not the only route into the music industry. And like you said, you could invest in a lot of very specialized courses or whatever and spend way less money.
Yes.
And then actually have that time to work on it
Absolutely.
and learn by doing.
Oh, yeah. But it's so important that you do invest in yourself, right? Like, when you invest into a coach or a mentor, you get to where you want to be so much faster. It's not about information anymore because information you can get anywhere on the internet for free. That's not what you pay for. You don't pay for the information. You pay for the mentorship, right? For someone to tell you, this is what you need to do next, and that's what you need to do next, and someone to walk you or to hold your hand on this journey. And in college you just don't get that because you're in a group setting and you don't get that one-on-one attention. Not that one-on-one coaching is the only way to go, but it's still like the relationship that you have with a coach or mentor is different than with your college professors in most cases. At least there's always
Totally.
exceptions, of course, but
Yeah. And for me, I got to that realization way too late. So it's good that you brought that up. Anyway.
Same.
And
I have
feel
2
like-
degrees right there. So I came to that realization too late as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure we can expand on this a lot more, but we will jump into our topic so that we do cover those things as well. Maybe we can jump into another episode, potentially going more into the importance of mentorship. So talking a little bit about vocal confidence. So what do you find are often the biggest issues around confidence that you see with vocalists when they come to you?
So I would say there's 2 main things. It depends on where they are in their journey. One, for the people who are already kind of on that artist route, they're already playing solo shows or like shows with their bands, and maybe they are an opener for someone else. And for those people, it's imposter syndrome. And for the other people who are just getting started, they are creating their own roadblocks in their minds. And I usually refer to those as excuses. So imposter syndrome would be, why did this person ask me to open up for them? I am not good enough for this. What if I'm going to mess up? Like, they're so much better than me. I don't deserve this. Someone else should be doing this, right? That's imposter syndrome. And so that's for the people who are already kind of on that route of being an artist. And then for people just getting started, it's like they make up excuses in their minds. And they don't know that those are excuses, but essentially they are, right? They're trying to protect themselves. So I was just working with someone earlier this week, and he's 32, and he's like, I think it's just too late for me. So I don't know. I'm like, dude, you're 32. It's not too late. So to me, that's an excuse. It's something that you come up with in your mind to protect yourself. And sure, especially this age excuse is something that you've heard over and over and over again. Like, oh, if you're not 18 or 16, it's too late, right? Something you've heard over and over again, but in today's day and age, because of social media, that's just not the case anymore. So I think that's the 2 biggest things that I see. People kind of like sabotaging themselves when it comes to actually doing it, and it puts a huge dent into their confidence.
Yeah, I actually hear a lot of those things and see those similarities between our students as well around, oh, it's too late, there's no point. Will I ever kind of get to that level? So why even bother kind of starting now and all of these things? So yeah, I do see that. And from a vocal perspective, what tools do you suggest for these 2 different types of confidence issues?
So at the end of the day, it comes down to the same thing, right? It's a mental thing. So I wouldn't necessarily say there are 2 different tools. It's just the symptom shows in 2 different ways, depending on where you are at in your journey. But what I do with those students who are struggling with having their mind work against them rather than for them is really dialing in on what they can bring to the table that no one else can. Right? So Beyonce is the best Beyonce there will ever be. If you try and copy Beyonce, no one's going to listen to you because Beyonce is amazing and you're never going to be as good at being Beyonce as Beyonce is. So rather than focus on, oh, I need to sound a certain way, let's figure out, okay, how are you different from everybody else? And what do you bring to the table that other people don't? Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to come up with a new technique or a new way of singing a note or a totally new note, right? Like, no, you don't have to create something new, but you just need to be yourself and figure out what is important to you. How does your voice sound different from other people? And what do you want to sing about? And then okay, this person asked me to open up for them because I have this special thing that I bring to the table and they wanted that. That's why they asked me and not John Schmidt next door, right? They asked me. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to go about building confidence. And I feel like sometimes it seems to be an easier thing for someone external to see what makes this person special. But sometimes it seems like it can be really hard for the person to see themselves, oh, what's good about me and what sets me apart. And do you have any techniques around that? Like for someone that thinks, oh, well, I'm the same as everyone else, I don't really know. How can they find what makes them different?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually something I hear a lot. Like, there's nothing special about my voice. Why would anybody listen to me? That's another like mental thing, right? Oh my gosh, singing is like 99% mental and 1% physical. It's crazy. But what I did, because I always pushed my voice to be something it wasn't, I always thought like, I am a belter and I'm going to be known as a belter, right? Because my idols were Lady Gaga and Christina Aguilera and Jessie J and Beyonce and, belters, Demi Lovato. And so that's what I wanted to be. So I pushed my voice to be that. And it wasn't until I actually auditioned for my manager that I realized, oh, shoot, I am actually an alto. And my money notes, my thing that makes me stand out from everybody else vocally, are my low notes, not my belt notes. And so the best thing you can do is sing a bunch of different songs for other people and getting their feedback. And it's preferred if they are people who understand music. Like, they don't have to be vocalists themselves, but just someone who understands music, and they can give you like constructive feedback and not just like, oh, that was good, or that was not that great, right? Like, gotta dig a little bit deeper than that. But as far as figuring out vocally, how are you different from everybody else, try and get feedback from other people by singing a bunch of different things, like low and high, belty versus soft, male versus female songs, and figure out, okay, what's that wow thing that people really are drawn to? And if you see you're getting that same feedback over and over again, then you're getting really close to figuring out what your, I call it the prima voce, what your sweet spot of your voice is. If you don't want to sing for other people, you can do the same thing, sing a bunch of different songs and record yourself and then listen back. Do you hear something where it's like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. What did I do there? I want to analyze that a little bit more. And also pay attention to what singing feels like. When singing feels good, it's going to sound good as well. So that's how you figure it out vocally. How do you stand out from everybody else? But it's about so much more than just vocals. It's also your personality and the things that are important to you. So, write down things that make you you as a person, not just music, but as a person, and what's important to you, right? Like, why are you a vegetarian? Or why is family so important to you? And like, really dig deep on those things and not just like, oh, family, travel, and puppies, right? Like dig deep to why is that important, right? Like if you feel like, okay, that's as deep as I need to go another level deeper. That's where the magic happens.
Oh, so many useful things there. And as you were talking, it was kind of making me think about different ways to analyze my own vocal, for example. And I haven't really thought about these techniques. So that's super useful. Thank you. And when, as a vocal coach, I guess you are needing to, at certain points, correct the technique of a student. And is there a way that you think is a good way to go about doing that without the student maybe feeling discouraged or losing their confidence?
Yeah, I never use the words like right or wrong, because who am I to say what's right or wrong? At the end of the day, you are an artist and you are expressing yourself, and I cannot judge that. So whatever you want to do is fine with me. But here's the but. We need to make sure that the technique behind what you're doing is healthy. I don't want you to hurt yourself, right? And so instead of saying like, that's not good technique, let's do it this way, I always asked, and any student who has taken lessons with me will tell you that, I always ask many times in one lesson, how did that feel? I don't care as much about what you felt like that sounded like, but what it felt like in your throat, right? Like on a vocal fold level, how did that feel? Because if you are singing in a not so healthy way, you will feel that in your throat. It'll feel tight, it'll feel strained, it might even be painful. And so, if we can make it feel good and we can still achieve the sound that you want to achieve, then that's great. So, if you go off of feeling, I don't think I've ever really had a student who then felt discouraged. They actually felt more encouraged because all of a sudden, whatever they did started feeling good too. So, it's like you get the best of both worlds. You get it to sound the way you want it to, but also you get it to feel good. And so it's more encouraging rather than discouraging.
Okay, that's a great approach and a good way to think about it without someone feeling bad about themselves. And we did touch on this a little bit, but around what you were saying about you kind of wanting to be a belter because your idols were, and you were really excited to kind of go down that route, but then realizing that you weren't and that wasn't your natural voice and what it did. Is there a way that you go about maybe advising your students to not try and do what's trendy or what their idols do, but to embrace their own uniqueness?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like, and maybe I'm just making an excuse for myself for having made the choices that I made way back when. I feel like these days we see so much more variety in radio music, the top 40s, right? We see so many different kinds of voices. And back when, I was growing up and when I was a teenager, most of the stuff that I heard on the radio, and I only ever listened to, the top 40s radio stations, a lot of it was belting, right? Like the Beyoncés, the Demis, the Christinas, like the Celine Dion's, like the Whitney Houstons, like it's always like those big, big, big voices. And I feel like the last, 7 to 10 years, it started changing. So we've always had lots of different kinds of voices, but they were not all featured in the top 40s music. Now I feel like all these different kinds of voices are featured in the top 40s music. So you don't need to sound a certain way to have a top 40 hit. As much as I felt like, this is just from my perspective, 10, 15 years ago. So maybe that's just me making an excuse for like why I made the choices that I did make and wanting to be a belter just because that's what I heard and that's what I wanted to do. So that's one side of things where I'm like, well, what even is trendy these days? Because Demi Lovato and Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish are all trendy, yet very different vocally, right? So what even is trendy these days? I would challenge them with that question. And then the advice that I would give is your audience will see right through your BS. If you're doing something that is not authentically you and that's not truly you, if you're putting something on, like makeup on a face, not that there's anything wrong with makeup, but like if you're pretending, you're changing yourself, you're changing your voice to make it fit something, people are not going to resonate with that because they will feel and hear that that's not what you do best. And I feel like as a performer, as a recording artist, as any sort of artist who sings, your number one responsibility is to deliver the best performances that you can. And that's like in the studio, but also live. And you can only do that when you are yourself, like when you are in your sweet spot, when you are in your prima voce. That's where you get that wow factor. And that's what will resonate with people. And if you are chasing something, whether it's trendy or it's just what you feel like, oh, I wish I could be a belter, so I'm going to do everything I can to be a belter, whether it's trendy or not, doesn't really matter. If you're pushing yourself to be something you're not, then it's just not going to resonate with people. And I saw that with myself, right? Like the feedback that I got on my voice was always like, oh, you have a great voice, right? But it wasn't until I started singing songs that really highlighted my sweet spot, my prima voce, where the feedback then changed to, oh, wow, where did those notes come from? That sounded amazing. And that's the reaction that you want. And you can only get that when you are singing the right songs for your voice and highlighting the right areas, like the prima voce of your voice, and you're singing it in your own way. Because those money notes, if we want to call it that, they're different for everybody. For some, it's low notes. For some, it's really high notes. For some, it's powerful belty notes. For some, it's breathy falsetto notes. It's different for everyone.
All right. No, that's good. And a few things to think about there, and really learning to embrace what's great for you and what works well for your voice. And I love what you mentioned about the trendiness spectrum is so big now. So that there's no point trying to aim for what is in right now, because that could be exactly what you do.
Well, and everything is so short-lived. Like, trends these days get shorter and shorter and shorter because people's attention spans get shorter and shorter and shorter. So if you are trying to chase something that might be trendy at a certain point, 6 months later, it's something completely different. So don't even bother.
Love it. Good stuff. And what would you say are some practical techniques that could be exercised on a regular basis to build confidence if that's what is lacking in a vocalist?
Do something every single day that you don't want to do. Something that's out of your comfort zone, right? Like, for example, I truly believe that physical health, like fitness, is very important for performers, for artists, for singers. Because what we do is, like, we're athletes, but all of our muscles that we use just tend to happen to be in your throat. And I mean, you use your whole body to sing, yes, but you know, it's those tiny little muscles in your throat that work really hard. And so you are a sort of athlete. But I hate running, for example. And what did I do this morning? I got on the treadmill and I ran for 15 minutes and I thought I was going to die, but I did it anyways, right? Because I'm just a terrible runner, but I have to do something outside of my comfort zone to feel like, all right, I did something that served me today. And, you know, it can be physical discomfort, but it can also be, you know, like psychological discomfort, if we want to call it that, like reaching out to someone that you admire. But you're like, oh, well, what if they don't like me, right? Like, what if they think I'm weird and creepy? And like, what if they don't answer? Like, who cares? Shoot your shot, go and try, right? So do something that's out of your comfort zone to just challenge yourself a little bit every day. I'm not saying, like, if you are deathly afraid of heights, go and, you know, bungee jump or something like that. Start with getting up on a ladder. Like, you know, you don't have to go crazy, but do something outside of your comfort zone every day to push yourself to get and be better.
I love that. I love that. And that's something definitely that I have tried to consciously do in my life, because I was a very, very shy person growing up, and I had to build that by putting these like micro fears in my life and overcoming them. And one thing that I try to do is, especially if I'm like going on a plane somewhere, to like speak to a random person on the trip, whether it's in like the terminal or the seat next to me or something like that. And actually very recently I kind of made a new friend on the plane. And there was definitely that fear of like, oh my gosh, this person's going to think I'm weird talking to them as a stranger. But yeah, so I love that technique, and it's a great one.
It works, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure. Every time you feel a little bit more confident. So I love that. And can you tell me as well, Lara, what has been a major highlight for you as a vocal coach in your career?
I mean, I have tons of like tiny little highlights where I'm like, you know, it finally clicked with a student and they have a big smile on their face and they're just so happy. So it's all those little highlights that I'm like, oh, this makes it so worth it. But one of the biggest highlights in my career as a vocal coach was flying out to Los Angeles and supporting one of our students in her band when like on their final show of their first ever tour, like when she started working with us, the lead singer, she didn't even have a band yet. Right. And
Oh
so
my
like
gosh.
she started working with us. 3 months later, she put together a band. 3 months later, they started playing local shows. And 6 months later, they went on tour. And it was like everything just happened so quickly because she was putting in a lot of work and she's so passionate about it. And so it was amazing for me to fly out my whole team at VoxTape Studios to go support her playing an iconic venue in Hollywood, the Viper Room. It's an iconic venue where so many people would love to get the chance to play. And, she did that after having been a band for not even a year, right? So doing that and being there supporting her was amazing. That was such a cool experience.
Oh, I absolutely love that. It's such a beautiful thing to hear. And it's a great thing to mention as well that these things can come about more quickly than someone may think, but it has so much work behind it. So it's not going to come if you just sit on the couch and wish, but
No.
if you really work hard, like it looks like this person did, it is possible. And I love that you and your team had a great part to play in that. So thanks for sharing that with us. So we have a couple of audience questions. I think some of them we might have touched on, but Courtney Storm asked, what are some of the best exercises to warm up as a vocalist before a session?
I'm a big fan of SOVT exercises. So SOVT stands for semi-occluded vocal tract, and that can be anything from a lip trill, like a brrrr, or straw phonation, singing through a straw. I love my Risono by Ravox. It's a British company. They make the best straws for singing. And so any sort of SOVT exercise. And I don't like to do scales as a warm-up. For exercises, yes, absolutely. But for warm-ups, I like to just move through my range and do sirens like and then just continue, right? And just explore, what is my voice feeling like today? What's my range? What feels comfortable? And don't like push it when you're warming up, right? Warm-ups are here to help you warm up what you already have, not to become a better singer. That's what exercises are for. Not warm-ups, right? Warm-ups is just stretching your body, right? Like before you do a workout, you do some stretches and then you lift weights or then you go on a run or whatever it is you're doing. It's the same thing with singing. Just stretch out your voice. Don't control the pitches too much. Just let it flow on some sort of SOVT sound. And then I usually like to do it on a vowel sound as well. I personally really like E's, but it depends on what you like. And yeah, don't get too caught up in the notes that you're singing and be mindful of your volume as well. Don't feel like you have to be loud. You're just warming up.
Okay, great tips there. And Linnea asked, how should you prep your voice to tour? So maybe before a performance, would you do some exercises and warm-ups, or would you just do a warm-up, and how would you go about that?
So before you get on stage every night, don't do exercises, don't do song work or anything like that. It's too late for that, okay? You need to be prepared before you go on tour, and that's where you do the exercises and the song work. It's in your practice room, not in the green room of the venue, right? But definitely warm up your voice. And every singer is different. So figure out what works best for your own voice and just warm up your voice and then go and sing. Because again, exercises, they're demanding, right? If you're doing them right, they are demanding. So why would you want to wear out your voice before you go on stage? Don't do that. Warm up your voice and then do the whole performance on stage. And as far as prep goes before you go on tour, make sure that you can do your set all the way through, right? Because depending on how long your set is, if it is an hour, maybe even a 2-hour set, which for most people, it's not that long, but in case it is, you need to make sure that you can sing for 2 hours straight every night, right? Or you need to make sure you can sing for 45 minutes straight every night, right? So building that stamina and longevity is very, very important before you go on tour.
So now we are coming to our speed quiz. Lara, are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
All right, so they're just 5 quick fire this or that question. And yes, I think you'll be great. All right, so let's go. Cold weather or warm weather?
Oh, warm weather any day.
Okay. Oceans or mountains?
Oceans, warm weather,
Okay.
right?
Yes, true. Festival or rave?
I've never been to a rave, so I would say festival.
Okay. Okay, good. Laundry or dishes?
Oh, I hate both. If I had to pick one, I would say dishes because it's faster.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Melody or lyrics?
Melody.
Yes, me too. All right, nice one. I would say that was pretty speedy, so good work.
Thank you.
So just coming to our top tips, Lara, what would you say is your one top career tip?
Oh, okay. Don't wait things to happen to you. Make things happen for you. So I just released a self-paced online course, and this guy that I hired to help me with marketing, he said, okay, well, let's look into influencer marketing, right? Like, have you ever done that? I'm like, no, I would never dare to reach out to these people that I idolize or like that I am inspired by, because what if they think I'm weird, right? Or what if they just don't care? What if they're like, another one of those people who wants something from me, right? And so I was like, okay, well, now I have to. So now I'm going to. And so I shot my shot, and I got so many responses and so many amazing collaborations and friendships, and new customers came in because of those collaborations, because I made something happen for me and I didn't wait for it to happen to me, right? Like, you can't expect someone to reach out to you that you want to work with. If you want to work with someone, reach out to them and tell them, hey, I want to work with you because I love your stuff.
Yes. Love that. Love that. Such a good thing to think about as well, is we need to be proactive to make things happen
Yes.
in our lives. So that's a great one. And what is your one top general life tip?
Be kind. It does not cost you anything to be kind, and no one wants to work with someone who's a beep.
Yeah, for sure.
No one wants to work with people who are mean. And if you're thinking about making a mean comment on someone's video, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, especially if they're a stranger. Like, give constructive criticism behind closed doors with to people that you trust and you care about, but always be kind. It doesn't cost you anything. And my mom always tells me that. From day one, she's always said, be kind, no exceptions.
Love that. Thank you so much. I've gotten so much from this episode, Lara, so really, really appreciate you spending this time, and I'm sure our audience will love it too. So thank you once again.
Well, thank you for having me, and this has been a pleasure. I had so much fun, so thank you.
Oh, great. And before we go, if people want to learn more about you and VoxTapes as well, where would they go?
Yeah, so I would recommend following us on Instagram at VoxTape Studios, and TikTok we have as well, and YouTube. YouTube is usually a pretty good resource for us too. And just everything at VoxTape Studios, and our website at www.voxtapestudios.com. And yeah, just reach out. Please send me a DM on Instagram, send me an email. I would love to chat with you and connect with you.
Oh, love it. Okay, we'll put all those in the links to the show notes. So thanks again, Lara, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Well, thank you. You as well. Talk soon.
Bye.
My biggest 3 takeaways from Lara's episode was firstly, to get other people who have experience in music to listen to you as you perform to help you determine what are the strengths and the weaknesses of your voice so that you can determine what your voice is truly suited to. My second biggest takeaway is not to do lengthy exercises before you get on stage to perform, and just stick to vocal warm-ups so that you don't tire yourself out before getting on stage. My last biggest takeaway was to invest in yourself by investing in mentors and coaching so that you can fast track getting to where you want to be in your career and in music. That's it from us this week, and I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.